Good afternoon. It is February 13th, so tomorrow is Valentine's Day. I know if you have watched my videos, the last one that I did, can't even think of what it was now. Sorry about that. I just kind of went blank. But anyway, backtrack. Hi, I'm Sissy from Sissy's Cards and Crafts in Eastern Ontario. I am an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. So again, apologize because I said that on my last video that I would do another one the following night. Didn't, life happens. We've all been there. But I want to go ahead and do this one now. So what I'm looking at, being Valentine's Day, but also being the Sale-a-Bration for Pampered Chef. My brain is all over the place. For Stampin' Up, we have a few different things here that I'm going to use that are part of the Sale-a-Bration. So in February, there's January and February, there's Sale-a-Bration, and that is for everything you buy, you get free stuff. There is a selection of things that you can earn, and I had a catalog here, but again, kind of lost it. Don't know where it went to. Apologize. I thought it was right here. But anyways, it really doesn't matter because they updated it. So there are these things. These were the original things that were in Sale-a-Bration, but they've added more. So even my catalog is not going to show everything. So if you place an order, $75 in Canada, you get one free item. For this set, though, it was $125, and you get the stamp set and the die set. So that's what we're going to use tonight. We'll look a little bit at that in a moment, a little bit more. This paper is Bloom Impressions designer series paper, 12 by 12. Really, really pretty. I've used a little bit of it. I believe this is one we're using tonight. I used this one on another card, and just some really nice pieces of paper. You get 2 of 6 different designs, and the one side, well, sometimes they're both very floral. Sometimes they're floral one side, muted another, like this one that we're going to use. So that was free with a $75 purchase. And then this stamp set was free. There's also ribbon. There's all sorts of stuff that is in there. So take a look at it if you're interested in placing an order. All right, some other things that we're going to use is some of the Timeless Plaid paper. It's 6 by 6, so you get more sheets, but they're cut down to 6 by 6 sizes, and there's plaid and checkers in there. So if you're a plaid person, there's all different size colors and patterns of plaid. How many patterns you can get? There's more than you would think. So this is Timeless Plaid. If you look on the back of our designer series paper, and the designer series paper is a good heavy paper. It's not thick. It's not like 100-pound. It's more, I'd say maybe 60, maybe not even that. But it is very nice. And it will give you the colors that are used within that paper. And one thing that Stampin' Up! Does really well is everything just goes together. It all coordinates so lovely, and it's just kind of so easy to do. So you can look at this here. And so for Timeless Plaid, we've got Basic Beige, Boho Blue, Cajun Craze, Calypso Coral, Cherry Cobbler, Crumb Cake, Early Espresso, Lost Lagoon, Misty Moonlight, Mossy Meadow, Old Olive, Pebble Path, Pecan Pie, and Wild Wheat. So, of course, those aren't the only colors, because we're going to use Night of Navy cardstock, and you'll see that it still works. Just coordination kind of is everything, and it works really, really well. Okay, so that's what we're going to use tonight. Oh, yes, these Spotlight on Nature dies. So these are not a freebie. These were a purchase. And kind of because I purchased this, I got to get something else. Well, and a couple other things. These weren't quite that much. But these are circle dies. You can get them bundled with stamps or a stamp set that goes with them. I don't believe they're bundled anymore, which is a little bit of a discount. But you'll see, I don't know, maybe you can't quite see. There's like radiating stitches on this one, or lines that are going out from the middle to the outside. Then there's almost like a eyelet pattern around, and then there's a stitching. So we've got a long stitch, a circle, long stitch, circle pattern that goes all the way around. And there's the 3 different kinds, and then they repeat on those 6, and then the same here, but obviously we've kind of shifted them. So you get 3 of the eyelet, 3 of the radiating stitches, 3 of the regular stitching dies, and you can get them. They go quite small to large. So just to give you an idea of sizes, the largest one is 3 3/4 thereabout, and the smallest is 1 inch. So really quite nice dies, and we'll use them tonight or this afternoon. Okay, so we're going to use Night of Navy cardstock for our card base. So what I've done here is, this is the card we're going to do. So I've got that bloom pattern here. I used another designer series paper set here on this one. I couldn't find any of this one that kind of matched with the other blues that I wanted to do. But this is Beautiful Bouquet. Bouquet is spelled Bokeh. And again, it's a 6x6 paper. And it's got like a lovely, just on one side, almost, I want to say a bubble sort of pattern. It's like lights in the background, or faded lights, and then the other side is very speckly. I can see this being awesome for Easter, that speckly side, but there's so many colors, nice spring colors in that. And there is a whole suite that you can get with this that includes this paper, and that is butterfly something. But there's a lot of butterflies. But this is the one we're going to do. So you can see I've matted it. I've got my thick white card base here. Then I've just put a nice little mat there of the Blackberry Bliss. Then our floral, again, Blackberry Bliss, and then the bouquet paper. This is that Spotlight on Nature die. I believe it's the second from the largest one. And then here's our stamp in there, and then the die cut that's on top. And I used a ribbon here that is no longer in stock. I thought it was on the clearance, but I just checked and it's no longer available. It's a dual pack of petal pink and white ribbon. So that, but you know what? It doesn't have to be what I've got. Whatever you've got, use it. Maybe you don't even want ribbon. Maybe, you know, you'll put another strip of paper there or something. Maybe you don't, like, it's entirely up to you. This is an idea to kind of a jumping off point for you to create cards. So don't feel you've got to do exactly as what I'm doing. And then the inside, I did another base here just to make it pop a little bit so it wasn't so white. I stamped right on the card, which I quite often I don't do. And then I was fiddling around. I cut out one of these hearts. I actually had thought I would put a lighter one on there. It didn't work, so I stuck it on the inside, but probably I'm not going to do that. So that's the one we're going to do right now. And we're going to do it in blue. So here I have cut out what we need so far. So this is the other stitching die, not the radiating stitches where the lines go out from the center out. It's the other stitch. So you get to see that in detail there. And I just think it's so gorgeous. And I really like the blue on the white. I'm just going to stick that aside because we're not going to use that right now. And you'll see this is the same paper here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it over to get that blue. That's what was kind of triggering my whole thought process. And then I thought we would use the plaid here as well. So what I'm thinking is, do we do this in the back, this in the front, or switch it? I'm kind of thinking we'll do this, so it makes this white pop a little bit more than that. So again, just playing around, right? It's all what you want, what you think, what you feel. It's not about what I do. So keep that in mind. Okay, I'm going to just rearrange things. I only basically have this much space on my desk to work. I have in the dream a brand new or redo my craft space and actually have a bit of a studio to work with. So this is the thick white cardstock. It has a different feel, a smoother feel. It's more professional. Like I hadn't used it for a while. But you know what? I just think it's worth it. The price point is a little bit different, but it's kind of worth it. So that little smudge there is going to be where we're going to actually put our cardstock. So we cover that. All right. So just make sure you've got it cut. This is cut. This is basically half. So just to use this one, that's an 8.5 by 11 size. I've just cut it down the middle. So that's 5.5. And then I'm going to score it at 4.25. So that's our standard A2 size in here in Canada, in the state, US. So my gray blade is my scoring blade. This is a good thick piece. So a little bit of pressure and push down. Now I've pushed down, I've got that divot in there, and this is kind of sticking up. You might think you want to fold it this way, but it's actually this way you want. So the dipped side is the side that you're folding on. So kind of the dip side is the outside, if that makes sense. And then use a bone folder to really break those fibers down and make that crease nice and tight, so it's not going to flop open all the time. Now, because this is that thick cardstock, that's not going to sit completely flat, but that's good for now. It will work for what we need it to. So for this, that is the same size. What I want to do is just to make a small little border so the white pops out. So really, it's kind of 1/8 of an inch. I want to go down. So how I do it, and I'm going to apologize right off the bat, what I'm going to do is I know, so this is the side I'm looking at, which is 4.25. So I do 4.25. And then I just go back that 1/8 of an inch, and that's where I cut. So it's going to be what, 4 1/8, but that's kind of how I measure it. It's how my brain works. If that helps you, great. If not, I apologize. So here's 5.5. That's what that's at. So I am going to come back. So I'm going to bring it back that 1/8 of an inch, and it's 5 3/8. And I'm just going to cut that little tiny piece off. Now, I earlier today was designing a card. I was designing this one, actually. I'll just pull it out and show you. So you can see here, I've got gold and then that Lost Lagoon layer. And so there's white, gold, Lost Lagoon, and then the designer series paper. That's just like 1/8 of an inch. So I did this and I'm like, you know what? I need to cut it just a little bit more, like for this one. So I actually just did a 1/16 of an inch. So you can, there is those measurements here. And this trimmer gave me those little thin slices off, which was incredible. I don't often see a trimmer be able to actually cut thin slices like that unless it's a guillotine type. So just another shout out to our trimmer and how amazing it is. Okay, so see there how it's just going to give me that nice little white edge around that I think will really pop, especially when we're going to put a white circle on there. So next, I'm going to do kind of the same thing for this. I'm just going to trim it down. And so for And I'm going to do the same thing, kind of just that way, where I'm going to go to that 5.5. Actually, no, I'm going to do 4 1/4 here. And then I came down half or 1/8 of an inch. So now I'm going to come down 1/4 of an inch. So that's 4. That's how I figure it out. So I kind of start at the beginning and work my way down. But 4 inches, cutting it on that. And then really this was 5 1/4. If I come down those 2 inches, or 5.5 rather, I'm going to be at 5 1/4 for this piece. Okay, so that's going to be that base layer, that matting there. Okay, just like that. Now, I'm not going to adhere this right now. I can actually adhere these two together, but I'm not going to put it on the card base. And I'll tell you why in a second. It's kind of cool. For some reason, that reminds me of like a Western. Josh must have something Western that's like that. I think he does, actually. That's what I think makes me think that. Someday I will have Josh come on and show you his crafts. He is an amazing crafter. So Josh is my adult son. He is 32. He is Down syndrome, and his crafts that he does, and he's sitting in his room now doing it, and he diligently works on them all day long, are these little guys. So he works, his medium is pipe cleaners, and he creates these little people. I think this is supposed to be me. I don't know. If it was me, I think he'd give me blue eyes, but I'm not sure. Anyway, so this is the body, obviously, arms, legs. This is the clothing. Hairs here. These are the little eyebrows and the eyes on it and the mouth. So very creative. I keep them right up in. I've got a pegboard behind there that I keep them on. He's constantly making them for me. He did some really awesome ones. I'll show you. Just to plug my son here a little bit. I am a huge, huge Muppet fan. So this is my little Kermit that he did. And we got him some googly eyes. He had trouble sticking them on, so he's used some masking tape. I got him some glue dots, though, and he's learning how to use them. And of all people, that is Fozzie Bear with his hat. And so those are my Muppets, and I just think they're the sweetest. Okay, back to the card. So this is going to be that layer. I'm not gluing it on because we're going to use a ribbon here for it. But before we cut the next, I just want to point out, I went right to the edge. So what this blue is, that's where I want these to be. And for matting for these, I'm going to use, again, the dark blue to mat. But I'm going to use this Designer Series paper, the same length as my blue mat, just so I can see it there. Now, that's what I preferred. I like the way it broke it up. If you want to make it smaller, so you can see that matting all the way there, that's great. Or if you want to actually mat them in a different format, fine. But I just really think the matting behind makes it pop all the more. Okay, so I'm going to, again, come out to where this full length is. So that was just that 1/8 shy of what my card base was. So I've got to do this the way I got to stop and think. So this was at that 5.5. So I'm just going to come down to that 5 3/8. And again, to remind you, I always, especially when I'm cutting off a little piece like this, my paper is at the top here, so I want to push up. I don't want to pull down. That's going to possibly shift it and move it, and then I'm not going to get that nice straight cut there like I wanted. All right, so that should be the right width, or length rather. Now my width here, I believe I did 2 inches. I did 2¼ inches for the bouquet one there. So let's kind of do the same thing. So I just said 2¼ All right. You start to get fuzzies on your trimmer. Initially, like I've just got a few, and not fuzzies on the trimmer, on the paper from the trimmer. Just kind of run your fingers along it, but it is going to get worse and the blade will need to be replaced. So there, that's what I want. Now I want to do this the same. So that same, first I'm going to do the width. So if I did 2¼ I want to be 2 1/8 there. Just double check that's what I wanted. Yep. And then that 5 3/8 there. All right. So that will be on like that. So I can just, again, it's going to show top and bottom, not the sides. And then the sides will just match up like this. So my thought was, I've got a nice pink one. I thought, you know, we've got a lot of nice blues. Not to be masculine or feminine or anything of the sort, but because I grew up loving blue. It was my most favorite color. I switched and then went like pink, like bright pink. I don't know what happened, but I changed my mind. Probably late teens, where I preferred. Actually, no, it wasn't so much the bright. It was more the rose sort of colors. And seeing as that was the 80s, that was probably why everything was that kind of that color. All right, not to give away my age or anything. So now we want to make sure that is centered where we want it. So to help with that, just I'm going to put that on there. And I also think I'm going to look at these checks a little bit because I don't want them to look a little bit wonky. So I think if I can center it on there, that's what I shall do. All right. So I'm just going to put some glue on here just to help glue it down first. There we go. And then I'm going to glue here. This Tombow glue works really, really, really well. I like it a lot. You know, you could put a little bit more on if you wanted to, but I wanted to kind of center this first before I did. And you can see how quick that actually adhered. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to put a ribbon on there as well. So just as long as these edges are sticking down, I'm good. So they're not popping up. Okay, so that is our card base. I'm still not going to adhere it because I have something else I need to do. So now with our stamp, getting warm here. I'll take my sweater off. So the stamp set, like I say, is a freebie. You actually can't buy it. It's not going to return. Once it's done, it's gone. So I'm just going to pop these dies away so I don't lose them. So you have till the end of the month to order them. If you're not a demonstrator, there is a great, and I actually did not state it properly when I was talking about it last time, but there was an awesome promotion for new demonstrators through the Sale-a-Bration. It's the best time apparently to become a demonstrator. So it's normally you pay $135, you get $165 worth of product. You can get anything out of the catalog you want as long as you do not go over $165. So that is the same for Sale-a-Bration, except they're going to extend that. You get more value for your money. Plus, they add on more product. So if you're interested, give me a call. Check it out on the website. If you're in Canada, I would love to have you be a demonstrator under me and be part of my team. And it can just be a hobby demonstrator. If you want to get your hands on this stuff, you want to do work with us, do some stamping, make cards, whatever your crafting is, then, take a look at it and see. Problem I'm finding today, and I found before, so I started out huge into the Cricut. I love crafting, and I was doing Cricut crafting, and I couldn't find quality paper. And so that was kind of the first introduction. I'm like, okay, where is the paper? And actually, I became a demonstrator just to get the deal on the paper. Then I started playing around with the stuff. And the other thing that I was struggling with as a crafter and doing 3D paper crafting is I like to ink the edges of my creations that I'm making. And so I couldn't find decent ink. I was just not happy with inks I was able to get locally through the stores. And it was frustrating. And then coordination of stuff, that was a struggle to find something that coordinates. You get a bunch of paper, you're happy with it, and then you go back to get more, and it's either no longer available, or the colors don't match, it's a different dye lot, or there was just a struggle, or it was not good paper. Like I had some that just was not cutting whatsoever. Even to run it through the trimmer here, it just would tear it apart. And again, that's a big brand name that you get locally at your big box store. Then the other big thing was the embossing stuff. Cricut debosses, so it pushes in and creates designs that way. I wanted the embossing, so it kind of pops up, and you just can't get that with the Cricut. So I started looking at stuff there with Stampin' Up, and I've just been so happy with the quality. Shipping is probably the biggest downside. You have to, wait to get your product and pay the shipping. But when you don't have to keep sending it back, it's kind of nice because you know what you're getting, which is much, much nicer. All right, so we are using Night of Navy paper, but I'm going to use Misty Moonlight Ink. And again, there's that coordination. So it's not quite the same. It's a shade lighter, but I think it will just make it look so much better. Our pads even, so they are stored face down. So your ink is always ready to go. Whereas if it was stored like this, like most ink pads are, gravity's going to pull that liquid down and you're not going to get such a good stamp. And that's like number one, where these things are better. And the quality of stamps, so there's a lot of photopolymer stamps out there. That's what you're seeing now. You go to the store, you just buy, a package of these, and you're, how am I going to do it? You have to buy the blocks. So, again, you can buy them anywhere. The big box stores have them. It's great, but they're much thinner. So even Stampin' Up! Has their kind of blocks that you get in kits, or with Paper Pumpkin, there's a thinner acrylic block. And they're fine. They do the trick. But notice how my fingers are kind of coming off the edges. You forever are getting your fingers in the ink, or you're just holding it so delicately that you're not getting an even pressure. So our blocks with Stampin' Up! Are nice and thick. They've got a ridge in here, so you can actually place your fingers. They're not sticking over the edge. I can get a good even pressure with that. It's a good grasp of a block. And then I don't know exactly the difference. It's all photopolymer, but however Stampin' Up! Does their stamps, they are much more defined, and they just work better than any of the other ones that I've gotten in the big box stores. All right. I'm always keeping a scrap piece of paper beside me just to get a trial run on. So I'm inking it up, and then just kind of a good press in the ink. And then I'm just going to try and make sure it's all on there. Everything's good. I also find this helps that I can give good pressure, make sure my stamp is on there well. So here, look, that's part of why I do this. You see what happened? There's a gap there. Well, there's a gap there because one of those little pieces of the dimensionals, so the Stampin' Dimensionals, the backing piece was stuck to my stamp. And I didn't know that. So if I hadn't done a practice, I would have stamped it on here and that just wouldn't have been good. So now I know I'm ready to go. That's just me. I always do that. I couldn't see that dimensional on here because they're difficult to see, obviously. All right, so I'm just going to have to lean in for a minute and pull this down. And I want to center this on here. Now, with all my talking and sales pitch and all that, this is taking longer than normal. This is quite an easy, simple card to do. Now, see, I didn't catch that there. Why? Maybe there's still something on there. Let me see if I can Some people are really good at this. I'm not so much, but with the photopolymer, you can hover and come in and try to get right on the same spot because I can see through there. This time I'm just going to push down on that area. Yeah, I doubled it up on the bottom. I think we're going to be okay though, and because we're going to have this overlay here. The top I did remarkably well. The other thing for my spare piece of paper is it just helps give me a good clean before I clean it, and that way it keeps my pads that I'm cleaning with a little bit cleaner when I pulled the extra ink off, and I'm not just putting that ink on my cleaning pads. Okay, so that is stamp 1. Now, before I put my ink or hand in this ink, now what I want to do is grab some of that blue. Do I have any blue? I'm hoping this piece is big enough. Ooh, it's just not big enough. Didn't really want to open a whole new piece of paper, but it's looking like I'm going to have to. Unless I went with this color. No, I want the dark. I want the dark. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Haha, I found another piece. Always check the scraps. All right, so I'm going to get out the Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, the mini, so you can actually see this in action. It's kind of that cool thing. Okay. All right, so I have my die. I'm going to place, first off, open this up. And that's one thing with Stampin' Up's Stampin' Cut and Emboss machines, both the mini and the large, they fold up. Makes it so much easier. Like you can just stick that on a bookshelf, right? And have it tucked in there. Whereas some, like I have an old Sizzix one, this is the way it's always. And it's, you know, you have to pick it up, store it, and it's just a little bit awkward to throw in a box even. All right, so then you're always going to have your cutting plate, your plate 1. That's, or not the cutting plate, the base plate rather. Your cutting plate, obviously, it's cut all up. That's fine. That just shows I've done a good job. Then you put your paper and your die there, the die with the cutting edge down. And then you're going to put your top plate on. They do crack. It will eventually break. Hopefully this isn't the time to do that it breaks. And you sandwich them together. They will warp too. That's normal. You're supposed to rotate them around every so often. So I don't know if you can see, that is obviously a little warped and cracked, but it still works. So use it till it's no longer working. All right, I want to position that there. And quite often what I do is I just take a piece of washi tape. This tape I've been using all day. It might not work, but I'm just going to stick it down there. Now that's going to hold it there. Put these together with the mini. The large regular size one, you can just even all of those edges up to put it through. But the mini, you're supposed to create like a little E. So really the top cutting plate and the base plate, they stick out a little further than the main cutting plate, just to help feed it through the machine. There's also, when you buy a set, the whole set from Stampin' Up, whether it be the large or the small, it comes with another plate, base plate, that is for doing 3D embossing. And some people are using that, and then they can even up and it works fine. So there's options there. All right, that's the middle part. That's the outside part. I'm going to do this very carefully because don't want to tear it. Sometimes they stick in here, and that's what those holes are for. You just take your pick tool and just poke it through, or any sharp pin or pokey tool that you have. All right, I'm going to just throw this back in here. And now just gently wiggle that out. So there is our overlay. Let's just see if that's going to look all right. I think it will. Just gives it a little bit extra flair, we'll say, underneath, but note to self, right? Try to make that a little better. Okay, so another thing about this glue. First off, I could have used, I want to call it a sticker sheet, but that's not what it's officially called. But it is like a adhesive sheet. It's kind of like a two-sided sticker, and you stick it to your cardstock. So I would have put the little piece of blue cardstock I had on it. Then I would have cut it, and then when it comes out, I can just pull it off, and it's now a sticker. So it's kind of make your own stickers sort of idea, which is kind of cool. And I do that a fair bit. But with this one, just because I'm doing just one, I'm just taking our glue, and I'm not even really, I squeezed it to start it, I guess, but now I'm just kind of tapping it down, and little dots of glue are coming out. We do have a fine tip glue that you can buy. Glue pen, I think it's called. I don't know. But it's very helpful. Now you can see over here, so here where I've just tapped, maybe you can't, but it's still white. The glue is still damp. Here it started to dry a little bit, but it's still tacky. So even though it looks like it's dried, I don't have to go back over it because this Tombow glue really works well. Okay, so now I'm going to pick it up. Now, if you can see how some are white, some aren't. You're going to get a glare and make it all look white anyways, but now I'm just going to mark the bottom there. There is like that center line of the stamp that you just try to line it up with. And there we go. It sticks on there. Okay, so now that's where we're at. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this ribbon again. What I do for my ribbon, a lot of people use pins, but when you start getting down this low, it's tricky. So I take an elastic and I just tie a knot, and then I've got something to grab to pull that off with. I find it works well. Okay, so I want to tie or measure my ribbon so it's just a little bit longer than my card. I'm going to cut it. Don't get rid of it because you're going to need it back. Then we have something called tear and tape. It is just what it sounds. It's two-sided tape that you can tear. So I'm going to position my ribbon center there, flip it over. I like to keep my hand on it so I know it doesn't wiggle around. Find the end of my tear and tape. And I'm going to put a piece there. And a piece here. And then kind of burnish it down. So rub it down. And then poke at backing off with the pokey tool. And then I can stick my ribbon down. So this is why I didn't put it down, attach it, because I wanted to make sure that I could do this. All right, so I'm just double checking that that's straight, coming over. And if it's not straight, you can lift that tear and tape or that ribbon off and it will readhere. You can't really do that once you stick it down. It's done. But I could use tear and tape and go along, and that'd be my adhesive of choice. It's a little bit more expensive though, so I'm going to avoid that. Now here I'm going to put a good amount. I'm not saturating it with glue, but this is quite a bit of cardstock, so I'm going to make sure it adheres. Come in, bring in my card base and center it on. Remember, I only have that 1/8 of an, or it's actually 1/16 of an inch border all the way around, right? Okay, so there we go. At this point, it really didn't matter which way. I could have put it on upside down. I would have been safe, but now it does matter. So I'm going to watch it. Now I'm going to come in and I can put dimensionals on this, so pop it up, or I can glue it. Here, I did use the dimensionals. It didn't look like it, but I did. So these were the culprits to being on that. So pop it over here and keep in mind you're going to want to kind of be over here. Don't put dimensionals where you're going to sit on this ribbon. So just kind of top and bottom is all really I'm thinking is going to work for that. That should be good. And these lovely little backings, that was the cause. It was actually a mini. So we've got different sizes. We're large and small. And, you know, with our, if you watched the paper pumpkin for this month, we actually had mediums come out, which was kind of neat. I liked that. All right, I'm going to put this about here like that. Stick that down. Now, this is what's called a faux bow. So I'm going to take 2.5 inches thereabouts, and I'm going to stick it underneath here, and then I'm going to tie it. I try to make sure, especially if the ribbon has a sheen to one side and not the other, to twist it as I pull it, and then that way I can have that sheen up. That didn't quite work here, so let me try that again. Try pulling that. Normally I give it a check before I pull it quite that tight, but okay, so what I need to basically do is twist it inside the knot. There. Some ribbons it works easier than others. Some ribbons it's just not going to happen. But if I can try, I'll try. Okay. There we go. I'm getting dingles everywhere. All right, then you just cut it, and I like to cut it on an angle. Some ribbons, if it's going to fray a lot, then be cautious of the angle and try to make them even. There we go. So that is a little, what's called a faux bow. And there's a card. Now on the inside with this one, I stamped "My thoughts of you are heart-shaped." That came in this stamp set. So that's what I will probably do. There's all of this paper left over here. So I will probably do the same and put a little edge on the bottom there. So I just took that with a little bit of this and edged in there. Oh, obviously not that long, but just kind of an inch, and then stamped it. If you want to put an insert in, then you can do that. And these are the very vanilla ones, just to show it's a little bit color difference. But that way, if you know you've got a good stamp before you put it down, or if you stamp here and you mess it up, just stick something on top. There's always a way to fix it. All right, so that is the heart-shaped photopolymer stamp set and dies that are with Sale-a-Bration. Some of the Sale-a-Bration paper. And yeah, thanks for joining. We will be doing some other cards soon and some card classes. So keep an eye on my Facebook, Sissy's Cards and Crafts. And we hopefully will see you again. Thank you. Take care. Have a wonderful evening. And happy Valentine's Day tomorrow.